let's say, be comfortable and maybe spend the whole night watching TV or do something like that, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
So how does someone pick the mentor, right? Because like nowadays there's so much noise. Like I mean, the podcast called Content is Profit. There's a ton of content out there, easily accessible for a lot of people. And we had that issue where like we couldn't figure out who was the person that we needed to follow, and then started filtering. And you know, for us, we had a system that we finally got somebody to do it. But how did you pick your mentors? Was it just by accident, right? Or is there something that you look for or you recommend people do when they're looking for these people to follow?
I'm going to tell everybody right now that you can always judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. Mm-hmm. Look at the fruit. Do not be misguided, right? And with, you know, YouTube and Instagram and all this stuff, you know, people can make it look like they're the real deal, right? People can really make it look like they're the real deal. And, you know, maybe they will be someday. Maybe they're fake it till you make it method. And my wife's in the music business. We've seen that a lot over the years, but always judge it by the fruit. You know, anytime I try to find a mentor, they need to have the same beliefs as me. I'm a high energy individual. And how I do it is I follow and research people for a long time. I've got two people that I've worked with. Well, I've got several people that I've worked with, but there's two people that I've worked with that have really helped me. One guy is named Craig Ballantyne. He owns a company called Early to Rise. They have a podcast. Him and Bedros Keuilian own a podcast. I watched his information. He gave me $1 million worth of advice just on his Instagram channel.
Wow.
And then I hit him up one day on DM. I'm like, hey man, how much is it going to cost me for you to coach me? And the way it broke down, I got one call once a month. I got weekly emails, right? Because he could facilitate a lot of people within the emails. But it cost me, you know, $1,500 for 1 hour.
Wow.
So the number one thing is, if it's not a stretch for you to afford this person, you don't want them. It has to be a stretch. Yeah. It has to be painful, because the more pain that's associated with it, the more you will actually pay attention. Right?
Yeah.
The second thing that I do is I don't work with anybody for longer than 6 months. 6 months. I'm the kind of guy that I like to learn a little bit from a lot of individuals. I work with people for 6 months at a time, because I don't want it to be a Lord and a master or a Lord and a servant relationship. I want it to be get everything they got, learn as much as possible, go on to the next person, right?
Love that.
Develop that good relationship, stay cordial, but go on to somebody else. That's the way that I do it. Yeah. Now, I have people that I mentor that I've had longer than 6 months, but they keep getting value out of it. Yeah. And I would tell you, if maybe if you, depending on what level you're on, then maybe you need a year with this person. But the moment that you quit receiving value, get somebody else. Yeah. You have to.
I love the way that you approach it exactly, and specifically the 6 months. I think this is the first time I see this. Yeah. And it looks like you adapted, like the way you completely understood how you work and how you receive information, right? Yeah. And then you broke that mold of like maybe what everybody else is saying, like you should stick to that person, you should stick to those three or whatever, right? And then you're like, okay, I need something that works for me. And sometimes a lot of people, when they're trying to find out their own solutions, and we see it with like content frameworks and publishing frameworks and all this stuff, right? They're trying to model every single thing, like, you know, for example, Gary Vee, or, you know, the same Russell, like you're trying to do the same thing. But the important part here is like, can you grab those frameworks and make them your own, just like you did finding your mentors and learning from all these people? So I thought that is very, very unique and interesting to me, because that's the first time I hear it. So I feel like we fall in that bucket too.
Yeah, I think we fall in that bucket. First, that pain when buying, yes, we've definitely 100%. Experienced that. I mean, we've told the story. Do you know who Steve Larson is, by any chance?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, with ClickFunnels, or used to be with ClickFunnels, now doing his own thing.
Yeah, correct. So we went to his event once, and he pitched his mastermind, right? His big offer. And we were sweating, literally. We were sweating in the table because we wanted it so bad, because we knew that was going to take us to the next level, right? But the resistance to take action was so big at that moment, sweating, shaking, doubting yourself,
Yeah,
right?
it's probably like 30 grand or something like that. It's a lot.
Yeah. And
we do not have that money, right?
but we were like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. And
Mm.
that has led us to take so much action to implement actually what we're learning. Yep.
Yeah, and this is the point where I want everybody to realize something, that growth only comes through stretching yourself. Whether it's putting up the money to be in this mastermind group, that's fine. But be careful. There will be a lot of guys that just take your money and run.
Yep.
Right? So do the research, know the person. If they have books, read it ahead of time, but constantly stretch and grow yourself. Like I read, I can't read very well, but I do read a lot. Let's put it that way. I'm dyslexic, as you guys know, because I had this call at a different time than y'all had it. And
no worries.
I'm ADD, but the thing is you just have to stretch, man. If you want to learn a new technique, you got to be thrown in the fire. And don't look at the fire as a bad thing. The fire is a good thing, right?
Yeah,
because
I love it.
Without being stretched, without being burnt, without being, financially tapped out, you're not going to grow.